we're gonna give people a few more minutes to find us and get in.
Hi, Fu. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. It's good
Hey,
to
Fu.
see all the folks on here.
Surprised so many people are on here. I know my wife and daughters are outside playing in the very not lasting snow. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, Michael.
Hey, Richard.
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Even if it is on Zoom.
I know. I would die for a knuckle bump right now, at least. Lorraine, are you back? Are you back in Minneapolis or are you elsewhere?
I'm in Minneapolis,
Good.
and I've essentially been here since March 11th of last year. So yes.
Really?
Well, it's good to see that you're staying safe.
Say, Michael, do you have something different where it's actually printing out what's being said?
Yeah,
Sorry, what's that,
saw that
Richard?
too.
It's actually printing out what we're saying.
Yeah, I was going to get to some housekeeping items here, but yeah, we're trying to be a little bit more inclusive into our events, so we enacted the Zoom closed captioning. It's not perfect, I'm sure, especially if I start to talk very fast, but we're doing our best here to record it and to send it out to our viewers so folks of all accessibility can read it and can review it.
Oh, that's great.
I feel like this is a test for me to make sure that I'm enunciating correctly and speaking correctly. Otherwise, they won't recognize it.
It is very true. Well, hey, it's 7 o'clock, y'all. I appreciate you for joining us. We have still folks coming in. If our awesome Vista and staff members, Mary Grace, who's in my upper corner, and Liz, who's in my lower corner, can help let people in, that'd be super appreciated. But yeah, first and foremost, just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening to listen about what we've been up to in the last year and sort of where we're going in the future. We have some great people talking. My executive director, Mark Hosmer, will be chatting, as long as our newly elected board chair, Fu Tao, to kind of give you an idea of where we are as an organization. There are a couple housekeeping options, as I mentioned earlier. So we do have the closed captioning going on, which is looking like it's kind of working. And we just ask for you all to stay on mute until it's time for the question and answer portion at the end. But honestly, without that, I just wanna send it over to Fu, who is gonna be chatting about what him and the board have been working on. So Fu, if you would please take it away, and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. It's really exciting to see everybody on here. I know it's easy to kind of, when we're staying at home and Zooming, that it's easy to not log in, just kind of get stuck at what you're doing at home. So I appreciate everyone being here and for joining us for this community update. As Michael said, my name's Fu. I've served on the Urban Boat Builders board for about 7 years now. and I'm honored to serve this year as the board chair. I'm going to share some information with you about the nonprofit sector in general, and also about Urban Boat Builders specifically. And so this past year has been tough on all of us. It's been especially hard for nonprofits. The need for services has increased significantly, and according to the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, 4 out of 10 organizations reported an increased demand for their services. The United Way 211 resource helpline for housing, food, childcare, and other services saw a 300% increase for calls for what we call, quote, new needs. Our experience at Urban Boat Builders has reflected that trend. So for one, our youth had increased food instability. 2, our youth had insufficient technology and internet access to engage in their schooling and our virtual programming. 3, our youth lost other jobs that they relied on to support their families. And 4th, well, the list goes on. So that's 3 out of many that we can name here. So while the need for services has increased, the resources to provide those services has decreased. 44% of the organizations reported a decrease in their ability to provide services to their constituents. And more than a quarter of nonprofit organizations decreased their staffing. And I bet that number is probably as low as 39% of the 392,000 nonprofit employees in the state that filed initial unemployment claims by the end of September 2020. That is 153,000 nonprofit employees filing for unemployment. Urban Boat Builders has reduced staffing going into 2020, and 1 staff member has chosen to move on in the spring, and that role has not been refilled. And so like many organizations, Urban Boat Builders is operating with fewer resources than we were in 2019. And even with the reduced staffing, I'm proud of what the organization is able to accomplish and how we continue to serve youth with so many barriers. We've transitioned to virtual programming for the apprenticeship program and a partnership program in the spring. We brought youth back in person for the apprenticeship in a new socially distanced model in the summer and into the fall until cases started spiking again. And then we developed new virtual programs for our partnership, sending tools and materials home and providing virtual instruction and support. Then just this week, we welcomed apprentices back into the shop for in-person programming. So exciting news to get folks back in and working with their hands. And there's an increased sense of normalcy and a lot of folks who are glad to be back in the shop. And the hope is that we can get everyone back in the shop and not have to, or see the other lower half of your face, right? I'm also proud of the organization's investment and efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And with a dedicated position and intensive work by the board and staff, we have made significant progress. And we'll continue to do this work to ensure that Urban Boat Builders is as effective as possible in serving our youth and engaging our community. So as much as has happened in the last year, it would be easy to focus on that. But we also look toward the future, and we're making short-term plans like offering new summer programs and thinking about public events like the State Fair and our Untapped Potential fundraiser, which is always so fun. And we also look beyond the short term and are entering into a strategic planning process that will create a roadmap for the years ahead. I'm excited about the bright future of this organization and the immense positive impact we can and do have in the community and on the lives of the youth we serve. I, on behalf of the board, and I know the entire organization, appreciate your continued support of Urban Boat Builders. And I will continue to share more throughout the night, but at this point, I will turn it over to our Executive Director, Mark Hosmer, to share some of the details about the past, present, and future of Urban Boat Builders. Take it away, Mark.
Thanks, Fu, and thanks for your leadership on the board. We really appreciate it. It's so good to see you all on here. So many faces that I haven't seen in over a year. And we're just so grateful for your presence here tonight and your support for the organization. So as I sat down to think about how do you sum up what's happened in the last year for the organization, I thought it was almost an impossible task, but I will do my best to give you some highlights And then we'll ask for questions at the end to dive deeper into some of the areas that you are specifically interested in. So before the pandemic hit, we had created a mantra among our staff, and that was to be nimble, focused, and feisty. And little did we know just how nimble, focused, and feisty we were going to need to be to get through 2020 and get to the point where we are today. So March 16th, which was just about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, the world for us really changed. That's the day where schools were shut down. And just like most of you, we as an organization were in a constant state of learning and adapting to what was going on. So for our partnership programs, they essentially ended at that point. So as most of those are happening in schools, it was something that we weren't able to continue as schools weren't actively engaging with their students in the first point, and then it was all virtual after that. So the one exception is that we continue to provide some virtual engagement for Focus Beyond, which is a St. Paul Public Schools transitions program. So we brought them virtually into the shop once a week and kept them engaged that way. So to give you a sense of the scale of the change, in 2019, our partnership program served 761 youth. And in 2020, we served 108 youth, which is an 85% drop. So that's a huge, huge drop. And it's just really a factor of the fact that in-person engagement just wasn't possible through 2020. But schools were reaching out to us and asking us to help engage their students. One of the things that schools love about Urban Boat Builders is that students get engaged through our projects. And so in response to them, we developed 2 new programs. We developed a folding camp stool program and a student desk program, which could be taught virtually. So we sent home kits and tools and materials to the students and did virtual recorded instruction and then help sessions with them via Zoom. And it worked. It's not our ideal way to engage with youth, but it certainly worked. We had one student at Jennings Community Learning Center who was in a folding camp stool program, and after 2 weeks of a 6-week course, they had finished it, even though they didn't have 4 weeks of instruction. They were just so excited and figured it out. And so Jennings called us and said, how do we, do we have more projects? Can we engage a student more? Because it's keeping them connected to the school and to education. And we said, yep. And we figured out something else for that student to do. And the same thing happened with students with Murray Middle School in St. Paul. Caitlin is our instructor in that program, and she put together instructional videos, but also had weekly sessions where people could come and ask for help. And we all expected someone to show up and say, how do I, screw this one piece into this? But she had 2 middle school boys show up and just want to hang out and just be present. And so they were there for the whole hour, hanging out and enjoying being with each other and being with our instructor, Caitlin. And at the end of the hour, they said, we'll see you next week. And they came back the next week. So even if our programs aren't quite what we think of them as being, they're still engaging youth in positive ways, which is great. Our apprenticeship program also has gone through a lot of variations over the past year. So in March of last year, we went from in-person to virtual, and we had youth in the shop about 9 hours a week prior to going virtual, but we just weren't ready to provide that much virtual content. So we were providing a few hours a week of virtual content, but we knew that it was really important to support and maintain those the employment experience for those youth. So we continued to pay them for the full 9 hours, and we also provided a weekly food pickup for the youth. And for some of them, that was a really important thing. I had one young woman say to me, seriously, thank you. We have a lot of mouths to feed in our house, and I don't know what I would do without this. So we were focusing on some of those basic needs and making sure that youth had those things covered, but also at the same time planning for adapted programming and more virtual programming. So in the summer, we were thankfully able to come back in person, but we changed our model so that youth were not building boats collectively. They were working on individual projects. So our shop, if the last time we were in our shop was over a year ago, it looks a little bit different as we have benches spaced out all over the place right now, and a set of tools on each bench. But it seemed to work, and the youth were so excited about being able to be back in person. And we did that for the fall as well until case count started to spike again, where we returned to virtual work. But as Fu mentioned, just this week, we welcomed our spring cohort of apprentices back to the shop, which we're super excited about. And through all this, even with less contact and less access for the youth, we're still able to experience a lot of successes and what we like to call mission moments. So Trini is an apprentice who completed their apprenticeship last year, and she got a job at a boba shop that our staff now go to all the time to pick up something to drink and to visit and support her. Katru graduated from Como High School last year. He had a job and was starting at St. Paul College this past fall and enrolling in a mechanics program. And Lexi, who was a great apprentice, just completed a training program with Summit Academy OIC, where she's training in carpentry, and she's right now getting her first apartment, living on her own for the first time, applying to metal fabricating and carpentry jobs, getting her license, and also wants to come back and volunteer at Urban Boat Builders in a mentorship capacity. She wants to be able to transfer some of that knowledge and skills that she learned through Urban Boat Builders and through Summit back to the youth within our programs. So, you know, even with challenges, we're still seeing lots of success, and youth are experiencing really positive things in their lives. And we're thrilled to see that. So our programs have adapted and adapted again and adapted some more. And we've stayed nimble, focused, and feisty. And we are keeping it going and serving as many youth as we can through that. And the people who are really doing a lot of that adapting is our incredible staff. Not only were they adapting programs, but they were also adapting to working and living in a COVID world like the rest of us. So learning how to use Zoom for the first time and adapting to an app called House Party so we could socialize together. Working from home while managing kids in remote schooling or who are out of daycare. So it was, you know, a challenging time for everyone in the world. And I was just super amazed and proud of our staff for how hard they worked, how much they adapted, and were able to keep youth at the forefront and the focus as we did that. We also added 2 little boat builders to our staff family. So Dennis had a little girl named Kaya, and Michael had a little girl named Nora. So we're super excited to have more folks joining our little family here. And the other piece of the people is volunteers. So volunteers are critical to our work and such a huge part of our community. And so we had to suspend our volunteer programming and activities as well, but not surprisingly, our volunteers found a way to pitch in. They found a way to continue to serve our organization and our youth. So some built workbenches or paddles at their home shop, or even just on their kitchen countertop in a condo just down the street from us. We had Zoom open shops to engage people and to keep that sense of community. And just this past weekend, we had a crew of amazing volunteers who came in to paint the shop to reflect, to freshen it up because it needed refresh after 7 years of living and working in it, but also to reflect the colors of our new brand, which we're super excited about being able to launch as well. So volunteers are such an integral part of our organization, and many are there every week or multiple times a week. And it really seems like part of the family. So I know that our staff has felt a sense of loss almost, not being able to engage with some of you on this call and our other great volunteers. And I know volunteers felt that same thing. So we are excited that some of our more established crews are starting to come back right now. And we're planning to bring back a slightly modified full volunteer program in May or June once we have some more higher rates of vaccination. And I think the other big thing that happened this year that impacted all of us was the killing of George Floyd. And it was really a wake-up call for everyone, but especially for us as an organization. It created an awareness and a depth of understanding that we hadn't had before. And I realized in those weeks following that event that we as an organization, in some sense, had failed in a lot of the ways in which we work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I saw this as we were putting together a statement from the organization on the killing of George Floyd, and just how challenging it was to do that, and the different perspectives, and the fact that we weren't necessarily bringing the voices of people of color to the front as we did that. And as I reflected on that, I thought about the fact that for 9 years, we've pretty much had the same answer to the common grant question of, how diverse is your organization and what are you doing to diversify it? And which we always said, we value diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're working to diversify. But really we weren't, because we weren't investing in it. We weren't investing the time or the financial resources to do that. And so we decided that we needed to. And so this year we restructured our staffing to have a quarter-time DEI manager. We put funds into our budget for DEI work and training. Our staff are educating them, and our board are educating themselves through different activities, including the collective reading of a book called Me and White Supremacy, which I would recommend. And the big lift, or the big work there, is that each program and department area has reviewed their systems, policies, and processes to identify areas where white supremacist culture exists. And we've made some immediate changes for things that were quick fixes, but we've also created goals and plans for how to make changes over the coming year and coming years, because this is something that we'll need to continue to work on. So as we serve primarily Black, Indigenous, youth of color, this work is critical to improving our organization so that we're relevant and responsive and reflective of our youth's lived experiences. And our board is also doing work around diversity, equity, inclusion as well. And I'd love to just turn it back to Fu for a minute to talk about a little bit about what the board is doing around that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We try to hit the ground running as a board. I want to recognize the board members who are on this Zoom call at the moment. If I missed you, I apologize, but I see Val, Josh, Brian, Tina. The board has really hit the ground running with trying to get things set up and addressing all the different issues, and diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of them. So we've created a committee to tackle that giant issue. And we'll task the committee with a lot of different things, but at the moment, they're formulating and trying to figure out, how do we, for instance, like Mark was saying, how do we respond quickly to changing environments, issues that arise that we may want to respond to quickly. And so it's certainly going to assist the staff in what they do on the DEI front, and look at what we as an organization on a grander scale, how we represent ourselves on diversity, equity, inclusion. And so if you're interested in being a participant in the board committee, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the board members. Or if you just want to give us some resources, we'd be happy to hear or listen to what it is that you'd suggest as a stakeholder in UBB. And I'll turn it back to Mark, unless you want me to talk about some of the other committees that we created.
Yeah, I'll take it for now, but we'll get back to that as well.
Okay.
So many of you participated in our virtual Untapped Potential and our 25th anniversary paddle portage relay event, which were a ton of fun. The logistics of setting up a shop space to be an event space changed to the logistics of delivering make your own pizza kits with beer and t-shirts included, and figuring out large Zoom events. And it was a challenge, but it was fun, and it was a rousing success. But that underscores the unique challenges of raising funds to support an organization, especially in a COVID year. So the funding side of our organization changed significantly. Before I dive into the specifics, first, let me tell you how grateful we are for the support of so many of you on this call and the hundreds of donors that support our mission, our youth, and our work. We are beyond blown away. But I also want to share some of the realities with you. So 25% of our budgeted revenue was for earned income. And that earned income comes from our partnership programs with schools. So when our partnership programs disappeared, so did 70% of that $185,000. So that was a big loss for us on the revenue side in 2020. There are also a few individuals and foundation supporters that told us directly that they were shifting their funding priorities to meet immediate basic needs, which I certainly understand and appreciate, and that's critical. But these two things had an impact on us. We were lucky that a few grant funds or grant foundations added some additional funding to support nonprofits during COVID. And when we release our 2020 audited financials, you'll see that we did end the year in the black. And that's great, but it was really only because of a few critical sources of unanticipated funding. So we had about $103,000 in government grants through the CARES Act, about $125,000 in planned giving or estate gifts. And we were also incredibly fortunate to receive the funding through the Payroll Protection Program. So without those revenue sources, we would be in a very different position right now. And we'd be scaling back programming, scaling back staffing, and thinking about other ways to cut. Thankfully, that support has allowed us to do something novel, which is to budget for a significant deficit this year. We did this so that we could continue operations at our current level and maintain the health of the organization. We also did it so that we could provide either partial or full scholarships to some of our partner programs as they return, because school budgets have been impacted so significantly by COVID as well. So we're coming at this year starting from behind, and that's okay, because knowing that we have this opportunity to raise new and additional support, and basically to work harder and smarter to inspire generosity to support our youth. And that's some of what we're doing this year. So COVID's hit us and really negatively impacted our programs and organizations. Some of those we've outlined. There's more, but I'd love to share with you some of the highlights of what we're able to do in spite of COVID. So some of those things are we were able to serve youth in novel ways and see so many of them succeed despite the existing and new barriers that were put before them. We were able to develop new programs that not only met our current needs, but will expand our repertoire going forward. We were able to make great progress in becoming a more equitable and inclusive organization, which will lead to being able to increase our diversity over time. We were able to stay engaged with our supporters, volunteers, and community partners through virtual events. And we were able to execute an awesome rebrand that was led entirely by volunteers on our communications committee and our talented staff and Vistas. So we've been able to do a lot in this crazy year, and it's taken work, but the impact on youth has been good. We still want to do more, and we're going to do more going forward. And going forward is sort of the last piece before we dive into questions from you all. Going forward, someone asked me today what I was thinking about for 2021, and really the quick response is navigating uncertainty. There's uncertainty about being in person. There's uncertainty about schools reopening. There's uncertainty about all these different things that we just have to figure out, and that we'll continue to figure out as we go forward. Looking forward to bringing partnership programs back with the goal of serving at least 250 youth this year. So not the 750 that we served in 2019, but ramping that back up so that in 2022, we can be back to those levels. We're developing a new program for a resource that we have, a CNC machine, or a computerized numeric cutting machine. So it's just a computer, it's a router that's controlled by a computer program. So we're going to teach youth how to both draw parts and materials on the computer, and then also how to operate this machine, which is super exciting. We're going to continue our DEI work. We're restructuring our volunteer programs to be more engaging and more effective for meeting our mission, and more. And I'd love to ask Fu just to talk about sort of those last two pieces of our pipeline to employment and strategic planning.
Yeah, as we think about our apprentice experiences and our alumni experiences, we want to, we've always been concerned about how to expand that, how to make it even better than what it is currently. And then to address that issue, we've created another committee, the Empower Plus committee is what we call it. But essentially what it's tasked with is to look at how to improve the alumni experience for our apprentices, reaching out to them, providing them, looking for opportunities for them to further empower them to be contributing members of our community, and supporting them as they seek their employment or scholarships, technical school, four-year college, or otherwise. Really looking at creating an opportunity for them where they have the option to refuse, as opposed to us trying to go and finding somebody to say yes. Getting these opportunities for all our apprentices to shine and to show them what they're made of, and to expand on what they've learned and the empowerment that they've received from UBB. So the committee is really going to hit that and try to tackle that big issue and try to figure out how do we do this and make it streamlined so that cohorts down the line will easily slide into the new opportunities that we create. So we're really focused on that this year as part of the board as well. In addition to that, we're right at the end of our last strategic plan, or the last year of our strategic planning process. And so what we're trying to do this year is create or plan the new strategic planning process, right? So we've had an RFP out for a week or so now, a request for proposal to find consultants who can help us sit down and really focus on what we want to see in the future for urban boat builders. And so in the next couple months here, we're anticipating to get proposals on consultants on how to do that and how they plan to help us achieve our goals, or help us reach within ourselves and to really see what UBB is all about within ourselves, and then pulling that out and expanding it into something that's workable, that is achievable for the next couple of years here. So we're excited to be planning for the strategic planning process, and we hope to get it done within the year so that we can hit the ground and keep going and making urban boat builders as best as they can be. So turn it back to you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Fu. And I think we're super excited about all of those things, and the pipeline to apply and helping youth transition out of our program and into their next employment, and also thinking about what's possible for our future and where we can take this organization next. And it will take all of you to support us in that work as volunteers, as supporters, as thought partners, and we're just grateful for you all being here. So I'm going to turn it over now to Michael to moderate some questions. So love to hear any of your thoughts or things you'd like to know more about.
Yeah, thank you, Fu and Mark. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate seeing all of you here tonight, some familiar faces, some unfamiliar. So welcome to our community if you have not been a part of it until now, face-to-face, at least virtually, that is. So yeah, Mark and Fu have talked. Really would love to turn it over to you. What questions do you have about the work we're doing? What advice do you have? What thoughts or feelings do you have? We would love to hear about what you're thinking. So with that, I'm gonna leave it open to everybody. You can either put a question in the chat, you can raise your hand virtually if you have that option, or you can just unmute and ask a question. We're all a pretty close-knit community here, so feel free to do whatever you prefer.
I actually have several questions.
Go ahead, please,
I
Megan.
wanted
Thank
to
you.
see an example of the folding stool. For starters, if you have one, I think I'm just kind of curious about what it looks like. And then on a very different note, I was wondering if there was an effect on related to the budget on staffing. Were there staff cuts? And then a third thing was maybe a little bit, well, this is a tiny detail. RFP, I don't know what RFP is. So, and then the fourth and final question is about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. You really talked a lot about the way, what I heard was the diversity related to racial diversity because of George Floyd, but I know that there are other parts that you're doing. And I just am hoping you can speak to that too. So those are all my questions.
Those are great,
Yeah, great questions.
Thank you for that.
I'll take the easy one. So RFP is the request for proposal. It's essentially it's just a form that writes down what it is we're looking for, and we send it out to folks who do that job of consulting for strategic planning. And so that's the formal process, the formal name for it. So then people send in proposals. So Mark, you got the rest of the questions. That was the easy one, right?
All right.
No, since I'm talking, I think you talked about DEI too. As far as from the board perspective on DEI, it certainly is, I think the easiest thing that does come to mind is racial diversity, but the acronym itself, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is always important to recognize and to remember that it's not just race, diversity and equity within race, but it's gender, social economic class, everything. I'm missing a ton of them, but I just wanted to note that the board does recognize that, and the folks who we've got on the committee are really incredible thinkers, and part of it is really to bring back some training so that people can learn about what the differences are, and so that's part of the task of the committee, of the board committee, to help all the board members and perhaps volunteers who want to learn more about it, and to understand all the different facets of DEI, and all the different ways that we can be diverse and equitable and inclusive. So thanks.
Yeah, and just to build on that, yep, so DEI, we're thinking about it in all different ways. We're serving more non-male identifying people through the apprenticeship program than ever before, which is exciting. So as far as gender diversity, that's there. But yeah, we think about it as more than race. It's all of those factors that intersect to make a person who they are. So thanks for pointing that out. An example of a folding stool, I tried to find one in the shop today, but we're sending them out so fast that I couldn't find one. So if any of the staff on the call happen to be able to locate a picture that they could.
Mark, I have one right here.
EB, you're a superstar.
So here is the completed, I don't know how easy it is to see. Here's the completed one. And you separate the tops and fold them down. And then it's very portable. Open it up. And it's either a little seat or a little shelf or a little table. There you go.
That's awesome. Thank you, EB. Yeah.
That's good. I also have a picnic table version of that in case you want to take a look at that and make a pattern for future needs.
That'd be great. Yeah, and to your last question about the effect of our budget on staffing, we mentioned very early in the call that we had reduced staffing going into 2020 as a result of, or as needed based on our projected revenue for the year. And then one of our staff members chose to move on in maybe May, and we haven't refilled that position. So as far as staff capacity, we've reduced by about 35% over the last 18 months. At the same time, we've also had some additional AmeriCorps Vista positions awarded to the organization. So we currently have 2 Vistas who are doing awesome things for us. And we have been awarded 2 more for next year and are potentially going to have a 3rd. So staffing is, the positions that we have are different than they were a year ago. And they're not necessarily long-term permanent positions, but we're at this point able to maintain what we're doing, but we'll need to look to ramp that up as programs come back.
Yeah, just getting on the chat here. I see we have a few questions coming in. I see Jim, you asked about diversity plans and includes, and I think that was answered by Fu and Mark. David, it's nice to see you. I hope you and Meredith are well. It looks like you're asking about the percentages of race or ethnicity that are served with youth in the programs. What I'm seeing is that in 2019, we were serving 33% Black or African-American youth, 27% white, 21% multiracial, 7% Asian, 7% Native American, and 5% Latinx. And I know that's kind of a truncated version of all those different categories, so I apologize for that. In 2020, it shifted a little bit, mostly because of COVID, and just kind of having to keep youth on in the shop that were already employed with us, and an area of hiring that was not ideal to do during a time of mask wearing and physical distancing. So I hope that answers your question as best as it can. Also seeing from Richard, are you planning for a presence at the state fair this time? Mark, you want to take that one?
Sure. We heard from our host of the state fair, the Minnesota DNR, that the fair is cautiously optimistic about going forward this year. We have no information beyond that at this point, so we don't know what restrictions will be in place or what it'll look like. Anytime we go out into the world and represent urban boat builders, we love to have our youth be the ones representing the organization. So if at all possible, yes, apprentices will be at the state fair, sharing the urban boat builder story and their stories with the public.
They were in the Boundary Waters.
I just have to say, I like that combination of caution and optimism.
Absolutely.
And I'm seeing from Sally, what volunteer opportunities may be available in May or June? Thank you.
Yeah, so we're some people on the call may be familiar with Open Shop, which was a Wednesday night where folks came in and helped with a variety of projects. That's something that we're shifting a little bit just because the numbers were not conducive to supporting supporting volunteers, honestly, and being efficient and effective and safe. So we're going to be adding a few more crews. There will still be one that's similar to Open Shop. There will be a paddle making crew. There will be 2 sort of production crews. So that's the in the shop additions. We always are looking for volunteers to support our outreach events, like the state fair where we're going out and talking to the community. We'll have some volunteer instructor positions with the apprenticeship program. And certainly we have a number of committees that we're always looking for additional volunteers for. So communications, development, the DEI committee, our Empower Plus, or sort of that next step for apprentices and alumni committee. So those are some of the sort of key volunteer opportunities that exist, or the most common ones. But we also love to connect people to our work based on your passions and interests and skill sets. So if there's some other way that you think you can contribute, or you'd like to talk about how you might be able to contribute, and we could have a conversation or discussion about that, we're always interested in doing that.
And as you know, one of the ideas that have come up in the Power Plus committee is the idea of mentorship. We haven't gotten exactly to that point of solidifying a process, but certainly an option too of mentoring 1 or 2 or however many apprentices that are in the shop. So again, just being creative with the different volunteer opportunities what you feel like you want to do, we can certainly chat about it. Mark and I can be creative about what you think your strengths are and how that can best help. And we always appreciate everyone who's willing to do anything. So it's exciting to get the question in the first place.
Definitely. Ryan's asking, are you open to working with nonprofit organizations who are interested in engaging youth in the outdoors? Yes, Ryan, absolutely. We partner up with Wilderness Inquiry to do our Boundary Waters trips. We partner up with Big City Mountaineers as well for that. We've partnered up with the Conservation Corps of Minnesota and Iowa to do job fairs. So if you're a part of one or you're familiar with one, certainly reach out. I can put the email address in the chat. We would love to hear more about what you're thinking. So
yeah, that'd be great. I'm a part of an organization called the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, or an international conservation organization, and I serve on the Minnesota State Board. I'm the Minnesota State Secretary. And so we do a lot of like mentoring for youth and things like that. And we're holding a panel discussion related to the Boundary Waters in another month or so.
wonderful. Well, we should connect. I'll put a link in the email and I'll send it to you privately. So thank you very much.
I think, Brian, you already sent an email. It's in my inbox waiting for a response. So I will get back to you tomorrow on that.
Hey, no problem. We're all extremely busy these days. I'm a nursing student at St. Kate's, and I've got a lot on my plate right now as well. So
Great.
Richard is asking, will the latest stimulus package provide any financial support? Great question.
That is a great question. The quick answer is we don't know yet. What we experienced with the CARES Act was that a lot of money went through to local government, so state, county, and city, and that some of that was passed through to nonprofits. So as I mentioned, we had about $103,000 of government funding in 2020 as a result of the CARES Act. So we don't know of anything specific yet that will come out of that, but our hope is that that there will be some support there. And we also have received the second round of the payroll protection program. We received that early this year, and so that's a big help as well. So yeah, I guess the short answer is we're not sure yet, but we're paying attention.
Yeah, sorry, I missed a question from David as well. It was a follow-up to the race, ethnicity, and gender. He asked if we felt the spread of race, ethnicity, and gender is okay. Are we doing okay? It doesn't seem like you're skewed too far one way or another. Mark, would you mind talking about the historical side of that in terms of the apprentices that we're serving? I mean, I can certainly say that our staff, we're working on staff board volunteer diversity. That needs to be something that we're going to continue to think about and work for. But could you talk a little bit about the youth side of that in terms of who we've served? And if I'm off base, David, feel free to jump in and poke your head out.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question, David. I think, yes, the youth we're serving have a lot of diversity. It has changed over the years, but to Michael's point, it's not necessarily the youth that we're really focused on increasing our diversity. We're focused on the youth for making sure we have equitable and inclusive practices, but the diversity piece is really the way that I'm thinking about it anyway, is those categories that Michael mentioned: the volunteers, the staff, the board, making sure that the leadership of our organization is reflective of the people who are served by the organization. So that's a critical piece, and we are definitely not the only organization that is struggling with that. And I was just trying to find, I pulled up a couple stats today, but essentially the diversity on nonprofit boards and in senior leadership of nonprofits is terrible. It's just not diverse at all. And everyone says they want to increase that diversity, but there haven't been significant improvements in that area over the last few decades. So, so yeah, we're really focusing on the staff, the volunteers, and the board in increasing our diversity. As far as the youth that we're serving, the apprenticeship program really stemmed out of our partnership with Boys Totem Town, which is was the Ramsey County Juvenile Corrections Facility. And so early in that program, 90+% of the youth that we were serving were coming out of Boys Totem Town. So they had been previously incarcerated, adjudicated youth. The vast majority were youth of color, and the vast majority were identified as male. And so as the county approach to juvenile corrections and has changed, they've actually closed Boys Totem Town. They're doing a lot more placement in programs within the community, and so we've shifted our programming to be a little bit more on the preventative side than on the reparative side, if that's the word. And so the youth that we're serving tend to be have more gender diversity, have a little bit more racial diversity, have a little bit more socioeconomic diversity than we did in the past. But I guess to the one point I'd like to share is that our mission, our passion, our commitment is to do our best to serve youth who need the opportunities that they can experience at Urban Boat Builders the most.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, Megan Gongo. Hi, Megan. Yeah, another awesome organization, Lake Pepin Legacy Alliance. We were in a partnership with them right when COVID hit. So yeah, they're a great organization if you haven't seen them down there in Lake Pepin. Monica, hi Monica. She's asking, what is your annual budget? What do you need to balance the budget this year?
This year, our budgeted revenue is $656,000. Our budgeted expense is $722,000. So we have about we're projecting a $67,000 deficit at this point, which is, as I talked about a little bit before, it was planned that way to make sure that we're able to continue to support youth, continue to support our partners, and maintain some of our program infrastructure so that as we come out of COVID, we're not scaling up from, we're not starting from a harder part to re-enter into full programming. But that brings up an important point of closing that. I mean, it's our goal to close that $67,000 budgeted deficit and not have a deficit this year. And one of the things we have coming up is in just about a month, we're going to be launching our spring crowdfunding campaign. And that's going to be a mailed appeal, an online thing, emails, social media, a whole blitz on just trying to encourage generosity and support for our programs and youth. So if you're on this call, it means you're connected to the organization at least enough that you're willing to spend an hour with us on a Thursday night. And so what we ask is, if you're able to support us, please do. But even more important is spreading the word, connecting more people to our organization, to our work, to our mission. So when even before that comes out, if you're willing to share some of our social media posts or some of our e-newsletters or content with your friends and community, that would be great. And then also when that comes out, if you can encourage folks to think about supporting our work, that will be a huge help as well. I'm looking around at some of the folks in this call who have just been master networkers, who have brought family, friends, people from their religious institutions, just all sorts of folks together around our mission. And our organization is stronger because of you. And so we're going to ask everybody to pitch in that way. Whether you donate or not, just spread the word, get more people connected to our work, because the more people who know about us, the more people who get excited about us, the more we can do to effectively serve our youth.
And that, I think that goes for the board as well, to the extent that you don't have time to commit to any sort of committee as a non-board member, committee member per se. Any ideas, connections that you might have, please feel free to send them either Mark or send them my way. and building upon relationships will ultimately build on the apprentices' futures and help us expand on DEI work and everything that we're doing as part of the board as well, trying to move the organization forward. So even if you don't want to come to every one of the committee meetings or not, just feel free to reach out, and I would really appreciate that too, and enjoy getting to know every single one of you to the extent that I can, and learning about what you do and what brought you to UBB, but also then talking about how we can improve it over time as non-staff volunteers and support people for urban boat builders. So, move
Yeah,
on to the
David, I
next
see a
question.
couple.
Yeah.
I see a couple questions from David. It's good to see you again. Yeah, you have some questions about immediate volunteer needs and some at-home shop work to prepare kits. Definitely, I can connect you with our volunteer manager, Janelle, and she can follow up with you to kind of figure out the logistics of that as we kind of get our volunteer operations back up and running here this spring. There'll be more information available, but there's certainly some work to be done now. So I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, we have three longboard programs that are launching in the next month or two, and that takes a lot of cut up pieces of wood to be able to build those. So there's definitely opportunities to do some work at home that can support our programs. So we'd love to connect with folks who have that the ability to do that.
Yeah, and a ton of that information is going to be on our newsletter, which you can find at urbanboatbuilders.org, or it's going to be launched through our social media on Instagram or Facebook. So definitely like that, follow that if you're into it. That's where we make a lot of our announcements about volunteering, about events, about youth hiring, etc. So feel free to do that if you have not already. Coming up on 7 minutes to 8. I know I have a 3-month-old outside, or 2-month-old, sorry, outside, ready to be held and put to bed. Are there any other questions? We'd love to hear from you while we're all together. This is really nice. If not, I would love to just open it up to, a little bit of casual, why you found Urban Boat Builders, why you support Urban Boat Builders, to kind of spread the inspiration around, and just leave it to you all, because we've talked a lot. We've appreciated the questions, but if you're new to us, we would love to hear from you. There are people on this call I've never met before. I would love to hear about why you care about Urban Boat Builders. There are people that I've known for 6 or more years that I know why you care about our work, but other people might not. So if you could just unmute and just kind of mention why you care about our work, I think it would be really nice to hear in a community setting.
I'll start. I'd be happy to start. So one of the things that I've done over the last couple of years, and we've done as a board of BHA, is and it really across the country, is try to find ways to get more youth involved in the outdoors. And it's been a serious challenge. And we kind of worry about the future of public lands within not only the state of Minnesota, but also across the country, just because so much of the funding comes from license sales, and that the public lands that are available to be used, whether it's birding and all the rest of it, hiking with your grandma, everything. A lot of that's maintained, through revenue from the DNR, et cetera. And so I stumbled into Urban Boat Builders last year, kind of as I was a part of doing some mentorship programs and a mentorship training program with the DNR, and kind of working with them was the first time that I had heard of this organization. And I just think it's a good fit, and I think it's an amazing program. I would really want to see one of the canoes in person and take it for a spin. As somebody who goes into the Boundary Waters as many times as I can, I would definitely love to paddle a new canoe. And so I sincerely appreciate the work that you're doing. I think it's incredibly important, and I really see the outdoors as this great vector for so much personal growth within individuals and within youth, and something that reconnects them to their purpose and gives them a direction in life. And it's done all of those things for me. And so I think the work that y'all are doing is extremely important, and I would love to find ways to work together and kind of support each other.
Awesome, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. It's nice to meet you.
Can I just, before someone else jumps in, can I just, Liz is posting our Facebook and Instagram links in the chat. So our other sort of ask from you tonight is if you're on one of those social media experiences, please like us. Please share our stuff. It's a great mix of content and photos and inspiring and happy things to brighten your day. So please check that out.
Michael, this is Richard Wiesland. And one of the things that I've always been impressed with, I've been involved about 3 years now with Urban Boat Builders, starting out as volunteer and continuing as volunteer, doing mock interviews, staffing the booth at State Fair, things like that. And I've always been impressed with the testimonials that your students give when they talk about what they've gotten out of Urban Boat Builders. And as a result of that, I just felt very compelled to support your organization financially and help support it. My wife agrees also with that. And so you're one of the organizations, nonprofits that we, in our retirement, want to continue to support financially and help those students that are benefiting as much as they are from your organization. Thank you, Michael and Mark and Janelle. I saw Janelle was on the chat there. So thank you, all of you, and your hard work that you do. Oh, and I want to include the board also. Very impressed with your board of directors there. I serve on a nonprofit board myself, a little bit different type of organization, supplying food to people that are in need, but very impressed with your whole organization. So thank you, Fu, and your board members.
Hey guys, none of you know me. My name is Mike. Just a random guy. Stumbled across your organization at the boat show. I went, I think it was 2 years ago now, and it just immediately struck me. One thing I love about it is, sort of along the lines Ryan mentioned. I used to live in Denver. I grew up here, lived in Denver for about 10 years, and when I was out there, of course, I loved the mountains, and who doesn't when you live in Denver? That's kind of why a lot of people move there. But I was struck to realize, and I found out through a friend that does a lot of volunteer stuff out there, just how many kids in Denver had never been to the mountains, despite the fact that they live right next to them. And so when I moved back to Minnesota and I stumbled across you guys at the boat show, it just kind of hit me that, like, geez, there could be plenty of kids out there that have like literally never been in a canoe or on a boat that are just missing this experience that, like, many of us just take for granted here in Minnesota with all our lakes and our access to boats. It's just like some of the happiest times in my life have been spent on a boat or in a canoe. And to think that we have any children these days that are not able to experience any of the joy like related to that kind of stuff and feel like the benefit of, getting their hands dirty, building a project, working on a project that enables them to do that kind of stuff, experience those kinds of things and have that camaraderie and all that kind of stuff is just, it's sad, quite frankly, that everyone doesn't get to experience that by default, period. So the fact that you guys are sort of doing that, helping kids to get out, get their hands dirty and build things like this, teach them the skills, hopefully get them on the water too in the boats that they build, is just awesome to me. So just kind of felt inspired to jump in and see what I can do because of it.
Thanks for that, Mike. You're dead on that. So many of the youth we serve haven't been in a boat or even on the water or in the water very much. So seeing youth launch their boat for the first time or take a wilderness trip is really just such a incredibly powerful and meaningful experience for us and for them.
Yeah, I can go next here. So I had volunteered with the program about 3 years ago. Just kind of paid attention to them here and there. Didn't get too much more involved until recently. I started supporting them. But going off what other people have said, that just getting the youth outdoors, especially with the people living in Minneapolis or youth living in Minneapolis, they don't have easy access to getting to the woods or getting up north. I mean, we have plenty of parks and whatnot around here, but actually like experiencing the outdoors, I think Urban Boat Builders provides a great opportunity for that. And on top of that, actually teaching them skills too. I know you provide them like scholarships and whatnot, but actually giving them skills to kind of advance themselves further in their careers. I mean, that's why I support them or support you guys.
Thanks for your support, Tristan.
Yeah, thanks, Tristan. I know it's past 8, so if people have to jump off, certainly feel free, but it's really nice to hear from all of you about why you care about us. So I know I'm willing to hang out for a little bit. I think Ann Erickson over there is probably willing to hang out for a little bit. Maybe Mark is. So if you want to hang out and keep chatting, we're around.
Yeah, I'm definitely willing to stay. And if you need to leave, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being a part of our organization. We really appreciate your time and your interest and investment. So
And on behalf of the board, thank you so much to everyone for being here. I can feel my inspiration bar just building up and filling it up again. So hearing the stories is great. So
well, yeah,
Hey, Alan,
let's hang out.
yeah.
I've really appreciated Urban Boat Builders. I'm trying to think, it's been 4 years. I started at the boat show again, and like a lot of guys, and I started off working at the open shop and doing some woodworking, which I really liked. But you know, I think the greatest thing was then when I moved into, in addition to the open shop, working with the kids. And I think one of the greatest things in the world is having grandkids. And I feel like working with the kids at open or at the boat builders is like expanding the universe of grandkids. And I'm looking forward to being able to kind of get back to that again.
I kind of wanted to speak up. I'm a board member, but the conversation about mentorship and mentors and this kind of new initiative Fu was referencing at Urban Boat Builders in terms of one-on-one mentorship. We started that at our school. So I teach at a school just down the road from Urban Boat Builders and have seen the benefit for our students. And a lot of you know that, but for those of you who don't, and in the past, probably 5 years, we've started to do one-on-one mentorship in our school. And a local engineering firm came and did a video of 3 of our mentored students to ask them the difference that a mentor had made in their lives, or just to talk about that one-on-one mentor. And I wish I could show you that video right now, because we can't watch it without like getting emotional as a staff. Just the way they talk about. One of them just sat back and said, I don't know where I'd be. He's my best friend. And this is like a retired postal worker that comes in and plays chess with one of our students once a week. And just, how are your projects going? So we've done research on ACEs and trauma. And I'm not saying all the students that come to Urban Boat Builders experience that, but we have, you know, some overlap in the types of students that end up at our school and end up there, because we're an alternative school. And the number one need is a one-on-one mentor. And the mentors love it. They don't want it to end, you know? So I don't know where, like Fu, we don't have that fully in place yet or anything, but it's being mentioned. And it's kind of a dream of mine to see something like that materialize with our apprentices, and maybe even after they're out of the program, in that program or that committee we're working on. So it's huge for their life and making it after graduation too, so.
Thanks, Val.
Yeah, so if any of you are interested, I don't mean to get so serious, it's just really been meaningful, and I wish I could show you the video, because I think you'd be like, oh my gosh, look at that. So you're welcome, Michael.
I think that mentorship done the right way is an excellent thing in life. Anybody else? I see so many people that I've been yearning to see an in-person boat launch this spring.
I wanted to comment on how good the pizza was.
Is that Megan? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It was just a fun event that you hosted. And I also kept cheering for the different teams in the video. The staff needs to kind of get their stuff together though for next year if you do it again. Because what were you paddling with?
Well, let's see. So we had the 25th anniversary virtual celebration where we had the races
Yeah.
where the staff lost. And
They certainly did.
thanks. Thanks for the reminder. It's the new year. And then we had the pizza, yeah, for our virtual Untapped Potential where we delivered the pizza and
Okay.
the craft beer kits. I don't even remember. What were we paddling with, Mary Grace or Mark? Do you recall?
Oh, shovels. Shovels?
We were paddling backwards through
Paddling
algae.
backwards. Right.
EB and I were.
EB, yeah.
The video says Janelle, but Janelle would have done much better than me, so it was not Janelle.
All kindness to Mary Grace. That was one of her first weeks on the job, and we asked her to compete in a backwards paddling and portage relay race to celebrate our 25th anniversary. So kudos to Mary Grace for jumping in.
And those were both very fun to watch. You know, I just wish we could all been there to cheer on different teams. You know, those were good events. I just also want to put in a plug. You know, when you're talking about all the boat building, just for safety on the water, and that needs to be a part of any, you know, whether it's safety in the shop or safety in the water, that's really important to stress that too. So that's just my 2 cents of serious time.
Absolutely, Megan, you're right on. That's I know you have personal experience with that, and it's something that we take very seriously to make sure when we're getting youth on the water or anybody on the water and anybody around tools in the shop that we're stressing the safety and doing it well and doing it right. One thing that you mentioned though, Megan, was the youth speaker or the youth who were involved in those events. And I just wanted to share one update. So if you were at our Untapped Potential event, you would have heard from Marquise Hill, who is who is an alum of the program and was sharing his really great success story. One of the things that he mentioned in that video is that he was working on his first full album, and he has just released it or dropped it, if you will, and it's on Spotify. So I'll work on, or one of the staff could work on throwing a link in the chat. That'd be awesome. The lyrics are a little explicit, so just a pre-warning on that. But so far he's only at like 11 listeners per month, and if y'all want to help him get up, that would be, I'm sure he would appreciate it. Who else? It's getting quiet. All right, well, maybe those who have wanted to share have shared, but just want to take one more moment to say thank you. It was really good to be with you all tonight. Good to see some familiar faces, some new faces. The support and the engagement around Urban Boat Builders always just blows my mind. It's humbling to be part of an organization that is beloved by so many. And those of you who have lasted until 8:11 on this call, obviously love it as well. So looking forward to connecting. If you have any thoughts or ideas or just want to say, hey, give us a call or shoot us an email or connect. And we have a few fun events. We've got a trivia night that we're planning coming up soon that we'll be announcing. We've got that spring crowdfunding campaign. We're starting to think about our our state fair and what we're doing about untapped potential this year. So there will be lots of ways to get engaged, and with vaccine rates increasing, there'll be some more chances to get back in the shop for those who like that. So in short, just thank you. Thank you for being involved and being engaged and supporting our work. We on the staff get to see the difference it makes every day. And I hope that just by some of the stories we share, you're able to see or relate to it as well, because it really does have an impact in the lives of the youth we serve. So thanks all for being here tonight. Really good to see y'all. Have a fabulous evening.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.